What's up, and welcome to another edition of the Cover 2 Recap. I'm BruinsSportsport.com publisher Edward Lewis. As always, this is Ryan Karchi, the UCLA beat writer for the OC Register. We're here tonight once again at the Rose Bowl, where UCLA fell to Oregon 42-30 in a game that really wasn't even that close. Ryan, they got run on all day long on defense. Offense, they struggled with a couple turnovers, some big penalties. Tell me about the loss tonight and what went wrong for the Bruins.
You know, you said it, first of all, just in terms of, watching on the field, Oregon just ran at will. I mean, they ran wild. Royce Freeman had a great game. He had 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. Marcus Mariota only had to run the ball 7 times for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. At this point, they just couldn't stop anyone. I mean, you're talking about 258 yards on the ground and the highest yards per carry average UCLA has allowed all year. And granted, Oregon is a good team, I mean, with an offense that's explosive, but it got to the point there in the third quarter where it didn't even seem like UCLA had the fight to even stay in this game. And they gave up three touchdowns unanswered right at the after halftime. And at that point, fans started leaving. I mean, it was obvious that this team had no chance of coming back. And like you said, even though the score kind of indicated that, they only lost by 12, it was clearly a blowout. I mean, at this point, I don't think UCLA had a chance beyond the first quarter in this one. It just didn't look like it could match up with Oregon, a team that has, dealt with the pressure of being, a big-time team, and UCLA just didn't look like that team today.
Now, with all that being said, individually, I thought UCLA matched up very well with Oregon in terms of, who's faster, who's slower. I mean, Marcus Mariota wasn't really running by anybody in terms of, Fabian Rowe was slower than him or whatever. Offensively, Brett Hundley was obviously better when the offense was on the field. Brett Hundley was obviously the best player on the field. So clearly, it came down to coaching. I mean, obviously, when you're getting blown out like that with a team that's as good as or even better than talent-wise in terms of individual players, it's got to be the coaching.
Jeff Ulbrich, I know there's been a lot of questions about him and his game planning, and again, he's always been one to step in front of the cameras and kind of take that blame. But at some point, you just have to ask for more. I mean, at some point, you have to ask for changes, and it's hard to really see a part of their defense in which they've improved in at all this season. I mean, we've asked about the pass rush nonstop since the start of the season, and at this point, UCLA still has 7 sacks in 6 games. That's a quarter of how many sacks Utah has already. So at this point, something just needs to be different. And I know, Jeff Ulbrich has talked about putting them in different positions and better positions to succeed and calling different stuff. I don't know what plays are being called, but at the same time, I have to imagine that they need to start making huge overhauls on this defense because it's just not even close to the unit that we expected. And I think, Ulbrich has been open, like I said, about taking that blame, but at this point, I think he deserves it.
Yeah, Jeff Ulbrich is the man. I mean, he's a powerhouse recruiter, great guy, honest stand-up guy. He generally means well. I mean, I think this is his passion. This is what he wants to do, and I think he's in that lab every day trying to figure out what to do with this defense. But, I mean, to go from that Utah game last week where they ran the nickel defense all game long and then to come out here and just run it again, it was just kind of, why are you doing that? Where are the adjustments?
And it certainly wasn't a good look in the second quarter. Fox cameras caught Jeff Ulbrich and Coach Jim Mora kind of jawing on the sideline, and Ulbrich handing over his play card to Mora and basically telling him, why don't you call the plays, basically. So I thought that was just kind of a scene that represented the bigger chaos and this malaise that kind of set over the team today. And at this point, like you said, I think you need to look at that coaching staff to motivate these guys and to make some kind of, big changes that will, lead to a better team effort, in Cal and Colorado in these games that now, if they lose, they could send them spiraling out of control.
Now, UCLA has lost 2 in a row, 4-2, and they really, outside the Arizona State game, they really haven't looked good in any game this year. So where does this team go from here? I mean, we listened to Jim Moore's press conference after the game. I think we were all alarmed by it. We're so used to seeing Jim after these games being rowdy and pump you up and hit you in the mouth, and this can't be this and this can't be that. And yet after the game, he was talking about fan support and how much energy they had and I mean, it just seemed so different, so weird. So where does this team go from here? And what was your impression of Jim today at the post-game press conference?
I thought it was in stark contrast to what we saw from him last year. We were standing outside of Autzen Stadium in this little tent, and he just slammed his fist against this table and was clearly just jacked up. I mean, he was aggressive and he was mad. I mean, at this point, I think people just want to see him mad. And today, you really didn't see that. I mean, he got somewhat defensive with some questions that were asked of him. And I think at this point, it's, I asked him personally about the team's effort, and he kind of jumped at me when I said that. But it was almost, I think it was necessary to see a rise out of him. I mean, at this point, you wonder what's happening inside the locker room. What are they telling these guys? A lot of people would have given their complete trust in Jim Mora, at the beginning of this season, and I wonder how many still feel that way.
Yeah, UCLA's got to pick it up here, and they got to pick it up here soon. And that'll do it for our coverage from UCLA today. As always, you can follow Ryan's coverage of UCLA on Twitter at Ryan_Karchi. You can follow me on Twitter at EdwardLewisBSR. Until the next time, thanks for tuning in to the Cover 2 Recap.